Welcome to Cabinet Conversations. My name is Paul Tatro, and I'm the director of Ford's Theater. If you're joining us for the first time, this is our live series exploring creativity, history, and leadership. You can learn more and explore our past programs by visiting our website at www.fords.org. February is Black History Month, and as this month draws to a close, we wanted to take a moment to recognize the work of Black artists. Black history is American history, and Black theater is American theater. At Ford's Theater, our mission is to explore the American experience through theater and education. A national racial reckoning is playing out across all facets of American life, including in the American theater. Ford's Theater has been committed to diverse casting for years, and with the current conversation zeroing in on race and theater, we're proud to strengthen our commitment to diverse stories, voices, and artists. Today, we welcome Sheldon Epps and Erik King, two nationally recognized artists who have worked all over the country, most recently here in the Ford's Theater production of 12 Angry Men. And while we are thrilled to bring them into conversation today, we acknowledge that their stories are an integral part of the rich American experience. Sheldon Epps, in addition to his ties to Ford's Theater as a director and senior artistic advisor, Sheldon had a 20-year tenure as artistic director of the Pasadena Playhouse. His Broadway credits include his Tony-nominated Duke Ellington musical Play On and the Tony-nominated productions of Blues in the Night and Baby, It's You. He has directed at Arena Stage, the Goodman Theater, Seattle Rep, the Guthrie, and the Roundabout Theater in New York City, and for television, notably for episodes of Girlfriends, Frasier, and Friends. Erik King is a stage and screen actor and native of Washington, D.C. Erik is best known for his lead performance as Sergeant Dokes on the Showtime series Dexter, and Moses Dial on the HBO series Oz, as well as Sonny Toussaint in Kindred. No stranger to the stage, Erik has enjoyed success in the theater on and off Broadway and across the country. Most recently, Erik played Juror Number 8 at Ford's Theater in 12 Angry Men. Welcome to you both. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and insights. And as a reminder to all our viewers, we are taking your questions on social media platforms. Please feel free to submit those so that we may share your questions with our guests during the program. And now it's my great pleasure to welcome Sheldon and Erik. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Hey, Erik.
Hey, Sheldon, how you doing, man?
I'm good. It's good to see you. You know, I was thinking this morning, there's a special bond that comes out of being in the rehearsal room that makes time disappear between times of seeing each other. You know, it's actually been quite a while since we've seen each other, but as soon as I saw your face pop up today, I said, "Oh yeah, there's my friend Erik."
Yeah,
and you sort of pick up from wherever you were and move on, you know.
And especially a space like that, Sheldon, especially the space that you co-created with your actors. It's such a safe space that you almost, when I see you, that's what I remember. I remember the feeling that I had. You know?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, a wonderful journey together.
Yeah, and it continues because of the the lessons learned and the ties we created. So
yeah.
I just want to check in with you. How you doing? You got the pandemic, you got you got all things going on, right?
Is something going on? Are there things happening in the world?
Yeah. There things going on.
I'm good. I'm very, very good. I've been blessed with good health and family as well, and actually been doing a little bit of work, not in the theater, unfortunately, but doing some work for Netflix.
Nice.
And shooting now in the age of COVID is a whole different experience. But I've been fortunate to get back with a community of workers and artists and all of that, and that's felt really good. And
that must feel good to be on a set.
It does. It does. And, you know, it's so interesting how thrilled people are to be going back to work.
Yeah.
after having been deprived of that for so long. They're just thrilled to be back there. And I think when we work in the theater, there's a sense of community that we were just talking about. If you're lucky, and if you're doing it the right way, there's a strong sense of community.
Right.
But with a television episodic series, where people work together week after week, you build that same kind of community. So people were really happy to be back together again.
And even though you were working in television, do you miss the process of theater, the rehearsals and
I do
work and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, television is so fast.
Yeah,
you just have to bang it out and move on, and the end of the week is always looming, and you just got to keep going forward. In theater, we have that luxury of a real rehearsal period, and of going down different paths. And even when you think things are working, to say, okay, this is good, but what else is there? Let's dig into something else, something different. And it may suck, it may be awful, but even by going down the wrong path, sometimes you discover something that you didn't see before.
Yeah.
So, I miss the thrill of that. And I just miss the physical contact of it.
Yeah. The process. Yeah. What you just reminded me of, Sheldon, one of the things I remember most about you is, the idea of doing so much table work that when you get up on your feet, right? And which is a beautiful thing. We got, especially with the piece that we had, 12 Angry Men, issues around race, issues around gender, to be in a space where you could find things, discover things. One of the things that sticks in my mind is you would tell us, I know you told me this, I was working something out and I said, let me try this. And you said, okay. If you want to try it, go for it.
Right.
And then after I finished, you looked at me and you said, that's a choice. Right. Still encouraging, still providing.
You could do that. Okay.
Right. Because in my mind, as an actor, it translates to, or you could do something else. Right. Which is the process. We're talking about working in theater versus working in television. And, I often liken it to having a steamer trunk full of choices. Right.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. And then you say, the director says, yeah, maybe, but not so. It's more this gradation. It's more this hue. And then, you go back in and you slip that on and see if it works,
Right. And the other thing I think is that like making good wine, even though you never feel you have enough rehearsal time, Lord knows you have a whole lot more rehearsal time in the theater than you do in television.
Absolutely.
And so you have a chance for things to maturate, to mature, and for the flavors to mix, and add another bit of different varietal in there, and then just to let it sit sometimes while it grows, and while it deepens. And as I've said to you in rehearsal, I like to watch actors behave on stage, not act on stage. There's a certain point out where I'll say, could you all please stop all that acting and just give me some human behavior?
All right, quit acting.
But it takes time to get to that. You can't snap to that in an hour of rehearsal. So,
Sheldon, did you start off as an actor? You did, right?
I did. Yeah, I went to Carnegie Mellon University.
Oh, wow.
And trained as an actor for 4 years in the acting option, and graduated to be an actor, to have an acting career, and acted fairly successfully, meaning I made a living as an actor for a good number of years, but then got frustrated with the possibility for casting and not being considered for certain things that at least I felt I was right for. So I started a very tiny 80-seat theater company in New York City with a bunch of other people I'd been to school with, and that's where I started directing.
What was that transition like? Because a lot of actors say they want to write or they want to direct.
Yeah.
it's a leap of faith. Of course, you have to get the skill set. It's a craft.
Right.
But how did you charge forward with that?
Blindly, to tell you the truth. I was not thinking about being a director. The director among this group that started the theater was a very, very talented director named Norman Renee, who went on to a lot of success directing Craig Lucas's plays on Broadway and a couple of films. And he said a very, very generous thing to me. He said, when we have a disagreement or even an argument in rehearsal, I confess that I usually think that you are right and that your point of view is the one that I come back to. I wouldn't admit that I'm coming back to your point of view, but I think that means you think like a director, that you're looking at the whole, not just your performance. So that was an incredibly generous thing for him to say. And he said, so I think you ought to direct and see how you feel about it, see if you like it. And I have to say that I don't remember ever consciously making a decision, I'm going to go after a directing career now. It's just that I started directing and started getting work as a director. And I honestly have to say I did not miss acting,
Interesting.
So I sort of knew in my heart and soul that I was where I was supposed to be.
What an affirmation, though, to have someone say that you see the picture, because most actors, many actors, we come in with the work that we do. We do all of our preparation. We focus on just our work, relationship, conflict, all the things the tool sets that we use. But to see that you have that's encouraging to know that having a broader view could lead you in that direction.
Yeah, no, it was one of the more generous things that's ever happened in my career, I have to say. And so just rolled on from there and didn't look back. And as I said, never missed acting, though I hope you know this from our experience, I really love actors. I think actors are the most courageous of human beings, because there's nothing between an actor and his art, It's not like a painter who has a canvas or a great piano player has a piano or a violinist.
I never thought of it, and that's an interesting
point. An
point.
actor is the instrument.
That's right.
So what you are doing, you are playing with you, and an audience perceives you that way. And I just think that's an incredibly brave or crazy thing for any human being to do.
Right. Yeah, an actor needs some sort of audience. Otherwise, if you're in the street, you're working, acting, they got places for you to go, right? Exactly. They lock you up for that kind of thing.
Right.
That's interesting, man. That makes sense as to, and that question came to me because there's a sensibility that you have about the process, allowing actors to push the corners, to come back, to find spaces and colors that we didn't know. And that only comes with safety. I know that I've been working for over 40 years. So to know that my experience with you was definitely one of the best experiences I've had.
Oh, thank you, man.
I'm straight up serious, man. And it's not because of what you created and what you allowed for other actors to bring to the process. And in doing so, it allowed us to connect. Many of those relationships that we have from that show, they continue.
They sustain. Yeah. No, I think it took me a while. If there's something I had to learn as a director, it was I didn't have to have all of the answers.
Yeah.
And in fact, sometimes it's just important to encourage the questions.
That's right.
And to say when asked about something, I don't know, but I hope to know tomorrow, or let's find out together. But to allow the process to happen in the room with all of the collaborators, and specifically with my relationship with the company of actors. You say I created it. I didn't create it. We created it.
We co-created it. You're absolutely
So I was just one of the guys in that room with all of you, and we created, and it was interesting because I had done that play before, as you know. I had done it out here in Pasadena, and I wasn't the least bit interested in trying to recreate what I had done with the previous company, but to really make it fresh and new and distinctive based on who was in the room with me.
You gave us those wings, Sheldon. You actually mentioned it on one of the first days of rehearsal.
Yeah.
You know, were there challenges working specifically at Ford's Theater as opposed to doing it in Pasadena, because it's such a historic spot? You know, like growing up as a kid, we would only go downtown. You know, I'm a urban kid, right? I'm being real, right? My parents were government workers. They worked for the government, right? And we would go downtown to go shopping. They would go to work. And I would go past the Ford's Theater.
Yeah.
So when I think of the theater, I never thought when I was a child that I'd be working there.
Yeah.
I would be, an actor when I was a child, but
right.
But the opportunity to work in such a historic space, how does it impact your work?
It's interesting because you go about the work in the same way in the rehearsal room. Rehearsal rooms are all kind of the same. They're better or worse, I always say, based on whether they actually have a window, so you can get natural light and real air in there. But then you move into the theater, and everything is subtly or greatly changed by the physical space. Number one, by the dynamic of the physical space, but in the specifics of Ford's, it's very changed by what you know of the history of what has gone on in that building. And there over stage left is that looming box, where not just this theater, but America was changed by the events in this room. So you're dealing with all of that, and in a way you're both, I think, and be interesting to hear what you think as well, you're both inspired and intimidated by that. There was a big dramatic event that took place in this theater, so in terms of drama, you have a lot to live up to, but you want to also be inspired, particularly in the case of 12 Angry Men, which dealt with race relations and talking to each other and collaboration. You want to be inspired by the spirit of that man who gave up his life in that box up there, and then you want to make sure that you're making it not historic in a way, that you're making it of right now, of the moment. This is not, we're not doing some historical pageant up here.
Right, because
this building is a museum, but this is not a museum piece.
That's the invitation. That's the invitation, isn't it?
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. So did you feel affected by that? I mean,
I did. I felt, Sheldon, I think I felt a reverence more than anything else. I remember
that's a good word. Yeah.
The day we walked in from the rehearsal space that had been home, we knew where the coffee pots were, it was a safe space, right? I remember walking in with the group of my band of brothers, and it was quiet. There was a moment, some people had, like Craig Wallace had worked there, but there were some of us who had never worked in the space, and just to let it in. And that was the staff at the theater is so amazing. People were so respectful of that, to just let us have the space for a minute and let it come in. And as you say, the fact that it was Lincoln, and we're doing a play about justice, and we're doing a play that's, not originally written that way, but half African-American and half non-African American. It was a moment, man. And as you say, you over at that box and you say to yourself, it happened here.
Right.
It happened here. And the museum is downstairs, which is incredible.
Yeah, there's just something distinctive in the air. Not to get too woo-woo about it, but there's a vibe in the theater. There's something vibrating in the air that has to do with the history of our country, and specifically Lincoln's history.
That's right.
And what that man brought to the country, and significantly to race relations in this country. That one of the most significant race-related events in the country's history was under his aegis, under his guidance.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're definitely affected by it.
Yeah.
Beyond that, as you just said, and it's one of the reasons that I accepted Paul's invitation to come on staff. The Fords is really a great theater, great support in every area of the theater. And I have to say, and I mean this truthfully, very smart audiences.
Mm.
The Fords audience really, number one, they're theatrically smart, but it's a sophisticated, savvy audience that really knows how to go on the ride with you.
Many nights after the show, we'd have to, the house manager would have to ask us to leave.
Right.
Right.
We'd be out in that lobby having discussions with the audience. Yeah.
But I think that was your intent, wasn't it? I mean, our intent, that was to create a conversation.
Yeah.
And literally people would stop and want to talk. And, they're glad to see you. We saw you on the show, whatever. But the idea of saying, this is what I thought was going on, or I was arrested by this.
Mm. It's
art at its best. That's what we come to do. We come to ignite the conversation.
Right. Yes. And there's this Shakespeare quote that the theater should hold the mirror up to man.
Mm.
And our production of 12 Angry Men was a great example of that we were saying, look at this, America, at least this section of America that is in this, look into this mirror and see that, we're still racially challenged. There are still big divides. We can get over it. We can talk to each other. We can have conversations. We can talk and listen, which is what good actors do.
Right.
We can work through it. But we're never going to work through it if we deny that it exists. If we don't look into the mirror and say, we still have issues. We still have things we have to work on.
I miss that about being able to go to the theater now. Like if that conversation, as a result of, the pandemic, and certainly we want to be safe, but if that conversation has been stilted or halted temporarily, what do you think that conversation is going to sound like when we get back?
Oh,
in light of,
I think it's going to be fascinating. I'm really interested in what playwrights are sitting at their desks writing right now.
Yeah.
It's often said that the best of American writing has come out of the most challenged times in America. Best of Shakespeare came out of the plague. He wrote King Lear, among other things, during the plague. So if that theory is true, imagine what must be emerging from the imagination of artists right now.
We got some good stuff coming, brother.
Got some good stuff coming. I hope we're all up to it, because it should genuinely have theatrical fireworks, born of the challenges, and immense challenges, and the triumphs that we've gone through.
Yeah.
I imagine some great play about developing vaccines this quickly.
Right.
There's a story there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
There's science there, but there's a dramatic, emotional story there.
We don't know how this story ends, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. We're in the middle of that play, right?
You're right. You're very right about that.
Sheldon, what someone's asked, we have questions that are coming in, which is, we're grateful for. Thank you so much for tuning in. And someone's asked me about me moving into acting and being in Washington, D.C., and how I prepared myself. I want to share, because I'm going to connect it to what we were just talking about. I'm originally from D.C. I was a precocious child, as my mother called me, right? A lot of energy in a house where people weren't, they were a little more staid.
Uh-huh.
Back in the day, they used to call me bad. That boy is so bad. And my mother had the foresight. I mean, my career I owe to her, because she had the foresight to put me in a program called the Workshop for the careers in the arts.
Oh, wow.
And I kind of went kicking and screaming. I didn't want to wear leotards and tights. I didn't want to, you know, all of that, right? But that program, which was taught many times by Howard students like Debbie Allen, Felicia Rashad, Kenny Holliday, right? Became the Duke Ellington School of the Arts.
Oh, I see.
And I graduated from the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, went on to Towson University in Baltimore, Maryland, and I've been working since. But I bring that up also, first of all, because the impact arts can have on a young child, on a young Black boy.
Yes.
Right? That's my experience. If you have someone who has the foresight to expose you to it, because you know, if you don't see it, you can't be it. Right?
That's right.
Right. And my uncle, my father's brother, drove me to New York to see The Wiz. Tells you how old I am. And right. And I remember leaning over to him, you know, when the red curtain came up, and I've never seen a Broadway show.
Right.
And I said to my uncle, do they do this for a living? Like, this is
this is too much fun.
Can they get paid for this?
Right.
So it planted the seed for me. And I'm going to connect it to what we were talking about earlier in the transition. I've been doing this for a long time and have been wanting to figure out how to navigate my way to other creative endeavors with using the experience that I've had.
Right. And
to your point, for the first time, Sheldon, I am co-producing a play.
So I've heard, yes.
Yeah, they're coming to Broadway.
Yes, wonderful.
Theater. And it is, I'm so excited because it's exactly what you're talking about. It's called Thoughts of a Colored Man.
Yes, yeah. I know several of the people involved, and
so
following it. Yeah, I'm so proud of you for doing that.
Thank you, brother. And
and it's also that people like you who have a more panoramic view of what the arts can do need to be taking those leadership positions.
Yeah,
you know, need to be sitting in the driver's seat.
Yeah,
you know, on Broadway, in regional theaters, you know, in community theaters. You know, people of color need to be in those leadership positions as well as on stage. You know, we've done pretty well with that on stage and on screen.
Absolutely.
But you know, in those leadership positions, in the creation of what winds up on stage and on screen, we need more people to do what you are doing.
And it is a blessing to have the lead producers that we have who have opened the door so we can get a seat at the table. Do you know, I know where the table was. You know, I know how to be on the other side of the table. right? I know how to walk in, hit my mark, hit my lines, get my audition down, you know. But to be in a position where I can be a part of a bigger conversation has been such a blessing. So I encourage anybody who is watching us who, you know, especially African Americans who have stories to tell now, this is the time to tell your story. This is the time to create your content.
Very true. You know, I think that with all of the horrors of this pandemic and this time of seclusion, you know, one of the things that it has prompted is a much more honest conversation about racism in the arts, in the theater, in movies and television, and a real. I always say, I have to remind people, this is not a new conversation. You know, this didn't start last year. I've been having this conversation for 30 years.
How is this conversation different this time, or does it feel different because you've been at it a while and pushing us forward, pulling us forward?
Right. It does feel different. It feels different in this way. Number one, there are more voices involved. You know, I remember being at meetings where I was one of 3 artistic directors of color, sometimes one of 1 artistic directors of color at major theaters in America. There are a lot more voices involved, and those voices are speaking much more honestly, much more directly, and everybody on both sides is telling the truth and listening in a different way. It's always been conversation and, oh yes, that's a problem. Or even worse, sometimes I've heard people say, well, there's no racism in the American theater. Race is not an issue in the American theater. A lot of patting on the back.
Yeah.
That's not going on now. Everybody's looking into that mirror that we talked about before and confessing that it has been and that it is an issue, and that now is the time to make changes. And changes are happening. Changes are happening in leadership, as we just talked about, in programming, in reflecting the truth of America on our stages and on our screens. And I think it's going to be incredibly dynamic what comes out of this period.
Yeah, I think so too, Sheldon. And what, when I've first had this opportunity, and I hear so many other friends of mine who are moving into production, my first thought was, I'm hoping that it's not a folding chair.
Right.
That in fact, it's a chair with sturdy legs that we can lean back in.
Right.
And I'm hoping that it's not. And part of it, I believe, Sheldon, is because we are now creating content.
Right. That's right. That's right.
We're not hired workers necessarily. There's certainly a craftsman is a craftsman for sure.
Yes, sure.
Reverence and respect that goes there, but it's nice to tell other stories.
Right.
Stories to be told.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be. I understand that concern. I share that concern that that it could be a folding chair.
Yeah.
And that that chair will be folded and thrown out of the room.
Right.
But I think people are much braver than they have been, and they're not going to allow that to happen. Yeah. For one thing, they're going to have something to point to. They're going to be able to say, during that pandemic period, you promised you were going to fix this. Now I want you to fix it. You said you were going to. You committed to fixing it. Now you better fix it.
Yeah.
I'll help you, but you got to fix, or I'm going to fix it myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what you were doing, which is to get together with another group of gentlemen of color and say, this is a work that we believe must be on Broadway.
Yeah.
We're going to make that happen. You can help us if you want to, but if you don't help us, we're going to do it ourselves.
It's a new Broadway, we're hoping. We're looking forward to that. Yeah.
Indeed. Are you looking forward to because you've had such a great career, and constant career as an actor. Are you looking forward to devoting yourself to that, to being the producer, to being the guy behind the scenes as opposed to on stage?
I think so. Here's the thing, Sheldon. I'm exploring in a way that I have never before, which is a blessing to have a career that allows me to do that, for us to be in this time that, again, I think the pandemic has been a blessing in some ways, in that it has allowed us to get still. And that's what's happened for me. So I'm definitely vested in telling stories, new stories, different perspectives, but to have the opportunity to do it on the other side.
Yeah.
I'm excited. It's a new pair of clothes to try on. Right. It's a new jacket.
Yeah.
I need to do some alterations. I might need some alterations.
A little nip and tuck here and there.
Right. But I'm slipping it on. So I hope so. I certainly.
Well, I can tell you, it can be. I have found, as you mentioned, as somebody who was an actor years ago, I have found that it can be incredibly rewarding, even as an artistic director. Yeah. It came to the point where I was as interested in supporting and nurturing other people's work as I was directing myself, and what can I do? What can I give? What can I offer to make you shine? To put the spotlight on you, to create and have the freedom to create, when occasionally, if I can add a little seasoning or something, or even again, just ask the right question as a producer. Not that you have to do it my way, but just to plant the question, and then to see the question answered by the artists involved is really, really rewarding. So it's a suit that you will wear very well.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to figuring out what I can leave on the table. I mean, it's always been about what I bring to the table. So,
yeah. So in other words, you're going to be hiring me soon. Is that right?
Yeah, let's do that. Listen, Sheldon, I really love working with you. So whatever that looks like, whatever iteration that is, because your spirit is so kind, and the idea that you're working at Ford, we're talking about what we're asking or looking forward to. Ford's Theater has been doing for a long time,
for years and years.
I remember not long ago seeing Craig Wallace again, who we adore, Death of a Salesman.
Right.
I come in, I see the family, and I'm thinking, okay, right. But what I realize is that it actually moved the story forward.
Yes.
Right. It connected all of our humanity. So kudos to Ford for acknowledging diversity when others, even when people thought that you might be uncomfortable. Right. And that's nice about being a little bit uncomfortable, isn't it?
No, that's true. I mean, Ford's, as I've been involved in these conversations about equity, diversity, and inclusion, I'm lucky to be working with a theater, to have run a theater, and now be working with a theater that we can point to as prime examples of the benefits.
That's right.
Sometimes people in these conversations will talk about it, and they talk about it's going to be so hard and it's going to be difficult and people are going to be offended and blah, 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 blah. I say, yeah, but look at the joy that comes from it. Look at the joy that comes out of bettering this party that should be the theater. The richness and the joy that comes out of creating work that truly represents all of America. So that's why I accepted Paul's invitation. At this age, I was not remotely interested in going to a theater where I was trying to get that started and get that moving, but to connect myself to a theater that already was well in process with all of that and only wants to do more of it and do it better and evolve and be more inclusive and more diverse. Well, again, that was a joyful opportunity for me, and to set an example and set a standard for, number one, that it can be done, which still some people believe it can't be done. It can, and that it can be done enormously successfully on all levels.
Yeah, and that people will come. That they will,
gosh, yes,
and now have the expectation that there will be more, which is a blessing.
That's right.
They come to Ford's for that.
That's right. Yes. That's right. No, I mean, the fear that I talked about is always interesting to me, because there are theaters, as you well know, who call doing one black play a season, usually in February, diversity.
Right. The shortest month.
I'm scared. I'm nervous about doing more.
Yeah.
The truth I can tell you is it's going to help your theater.
Exactly.
You're going to broaden your audience. The constituency that you can serve by diversifying your programming and being more inclusive is going to dynamically change your audience ratio and your audience potential.
Yes.
So is it important to me politically? Socially, absolutely, but it's good business.
We're learning that across all of the divides at this point too. I mean, you're seeing those conversations in C-suites. You're seeing that it's affecting people's bottom line when there's more diversity, not just economically, but spiritually and socially. Yes. We need to be more connected. Right. I was looking, Sheldon, at a diversity panel from 2016 that Equity did. Interesting that some of the same questions and some of the same concerns are still prevalent.
Oh, yes.
So, but it is a new day, so we'll see.
Yes, the sun is rising.
Before we go,
Sheldon, what advice or tips would you give anybody who's interested in becoming a director or just being a creative in the theater?
what would you say?
Well, the first thing I say is know that you want it passionately. It's a tough field. It's going to get tougher because sadly we're going to come out of this pandemic with contractions of the field, fewer theaters, fewer productions, fewer job opportunities. So you have to want it passionately.
Yeah.
If you do, study, the theater can be magical, but what we do to make it magical is a craft.
That's right.
And you got to learn this craft just as if you want to be a doctor or a brain scientist, whatever. It is a craft, and there are tools that you should gather and have in your toolbox to make your art.
Yeah.
And then be brave and courageous. It's nobody wants to see a shy artist, of any kind. Nobody wants to see a shy piano player, a shy opera singer, a shy dancer. You got to be bold. You have to be courageous and know what know what you have to offer, and be brave enough to offer it sincerely, honestly, and humbly.
Yeah. And humbly. I love that, man.
Yeah. All of
it. The idea just came to me is just paint in broad, bright colors.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
The course of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, as going back to what we were talking about before, when I said actors have to be courageous, so do designers, so do producers, so do marketing people, and that's the other thing I would say, Erik, and this is important in terms of broadening the field.
Yes,
for young people of color. There are other opportunities beyond acting and directing. There is producing that we just talked about. But there's marketing, there's fundraising, there's technical direction, think in other ways beyond just being on stage.
Right.
There are, it's still among young people of color. I want to be an actor. I want to be an actor. Well, good. I did too at one time. But there are other possibilities. There are other things that you can do to serve this art form and to get the same kind of rewards out of it as being an actor.
Because that's true diversity, isn't it?
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And the more we allow ourselves the freedom to approach some of those other jobs and skills, the better off we're going to be. Hello again, Paul.
Oh.
Well, that's a perfect place for me to jump in, because I was thinking, we at the theater across America now are looking for people of color to populate the administrative side and backstage side of the theaters. So, as you both noticed and mentioned, and clearly have been part of the sort of renaissance that we've had at Ford's with, people of color in the sort of creative and directing and acting on the stage, and the work we've done, we're constantly looking to how do we try to bring that same energy, that same diversity across the theater organization, like from the boardroom to backstage and everything in between. And I think that's terrific. And I want to point out two other things that you guys, I've been sitting backstage here listening diligently. We talked about the theater and what do you tell young people? And I love that idea about want it passionately, because as the three of us know, you get a lot of rejection in the theater.
Right.
And if you don't want it passionately and you don't have I can't possibly do anything else, you're not going to succeed in this business.
That's
because
true.
You're going to get kicked around and you're going to get denied and you're going to get thrown out too many times.
That's right.
And if you're passionate, and Erik, you've probably been to a bazillion auditions where you walked out and thought, I got that part, and they never call. But you keep coming back, and that's why you've been successful.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's great. So Listen, I want to thank the two of you so very much. What a great, great conversation. And Erik, I'm going to say one more thing to you.
Yes, sir.
I welcome you going into producing.
Oh,
but
man.
do not give up the boards because you are too damn good an actor.
That's true.
Oh, man.
Right, Sheldon? Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Erik, do not.
You can work both sides of the street.
Exactly.
That's quite a compliment. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, listen, it was so wonderful listening to the two of you talk about 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
Not only was it a brilliant production with just, stellar all the way around, it was a great success. And I think our audiences still today are talking about 12 Angry Men. So
that's great.
Thank you both. Thank you so much for participating today. We hope those of you at home enjoyed our conversation. We'll continue to respond to your Facebook and Twitter comments and questions that we didn't get to during the live session today. We hope you'll consider making a financial gift to Ford's Theater to help support our mission and work. And you can do so at www.fords.org/donate. Join us for our next conversation next week, March 4th, 2021. Until then, stay safe and well, and we'll see you at the theater. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.